The Windrush scandal demonstrates what is wrong with the Tories. I don't mean what's wrong with their policy, although it does that too. I mean what is wrong with them as people. Now, you might already be familiar with what's going on with the Windrush children. If so, you can skip forward to here in the video. If not, I'll briefly explain. So at the end of World War II, Britain was facing a labour shortage, and they decided to allow people from Commonwealth countries like Jamaica, Trinidad and Tobago and Barbados to move to the UK to work and plug that shortage. The first ship carrying people from Jamaica was called the Windrush, despite being diesel powered, and so these people are often referred to as the Windrush generation. Now, a lot of them were families travelling with young children, and those children would have been included on their parents' passports rather than having documentation of their own. In 1971, when the policy ended, all the people who'd arrived as part of the Windrush generation were given indefinite leave to remain in the UK. And then in 2009, the UK Border Agency decided that it would destroy all the landing cards from the Windrush generation. You know, 25 years worth of documents. Probably won't need these, will we? Let's just chuck them out. In 2013, a Home Secretary called Theresa May introduced a raft of legislation which she referred to as creating a hostile environment for illegal immigrants. So saying people had to prove their citizenship if they wanted to work, if they wanted to access healthcare, all kinds of things like that. And since 2013, speaking as a middle-class white woman, I've been asked to prove my citizenship exactly 0 times. When I've needed healthcare, they've just given it to me. When I've gone and applied for work, nobody has asked me to prove my British citizenship. But unsurprisingly perhaps, a bunch of people from the Windrush children generation have been asked to provide this documentation, and they don't have passports because they arrived on their parents' passport, and they don't have landing cards because the Borders Agency has burnt them. And what they've been asked to do is to provide proof that they have been continuously resident in the country since 1973, providing at least one piece of official documentation per year. Now, some of these people, of course, were children in 1973. What are they supposed to provide? A letter to Jimmy Savile? A Gary Glitter LP? Those are the sort of documentation that you should have burnt, frankly. And if you've got bank statements and utility bills from 1973, seek help. You have a hoarding problem. Right? The only people who should be keeping documentation from that era are the UK Borders Agency, whose job it is to be able to deal with exactly this sort of thing. OK, now welcome back. So let's talk about what's wrong with the Tories. The current Home Secretary is one Amber Rudd, and talking about the situation, she said this: the Home Office has become too concerned with policy and strategy and sometimes lost sight of the individuals. This is exactly what's wrong with the Tories. They're thinking about policy and strategy, and they haven't actually started with the individual, like who is going to be affected by the policy and the strategy. Right, so the government now has a target of reducing net migration to under 100,000 by 2022. Right, and those numbers are totally arbitrary. David Cameron picked under 100,000 because it made a nice soundbite. He wanted to say we should be in the tens of thousands, not the hundreds of thousands. 5 figures, not 6 figures. It's a totally arbitrary cut-off point. And 2022 was picked because that's the year of the next election, or when it has to be. So these are totally arbitrary numbers. And what they haven't asked is an important question like this. In 2022, will there be 100,000 people who have a legal right to come and claim asylum in this country? Probably, if we keep bombing Syria like this and creating more refugees. Seems quite likely. We haven't started with the individuals, except, of course, they have. They have been thinking about the individuals. A different group of individuals, though. They've been thinking about the traditional Tory voting individuals who have consumed so much sort of Daily Mail bullshit news bigotry that they've become racist enough to consider voting for UKIP in 2022. Those are the individuals they're thinking about. Now, I consider myself pretty woke, so I've done what any responsible citizen would do to deal with the situation. I signed a petition, "You're welcome," and the government wrote straight back to me. And they said, "We see you signed our petition. We'd like to ask you some more about your opinion." And I thought, at last, I've been waiting for this moment all my life. I've got tons of opinions, right? I am Little Miss Opinion, or if you don't mind, Ms. Opinion. So I clicked straight on the website and they asked me exactly 2 questions. And these are the questions. Number 1, Did you, or someone you're close to, arrive in the UK as a child between 1948 and 1971? Question 2. Are you, or someone you're close to, having difficulty proving you can stay in the UK, access healthcare, or have the right to work? So all they're asking me, right, is do you have some sort of vested interest in this? Did you sign the petition because it directly affects you? Like, no. You don't have to be, like, waiting for your mum to be deported or refused vital life-saving health treatment for cancer or some other awful, awful condition to care about what is going on here. This is exactly what's wrong with the Tories, right? It's not me that cannot imagine caring about something without having a vested interest. It's them, right? So let me ask you a question, Mrs. May, right? Do you, or someone you're close to, work as a senior executive for a company called Capital Group that has a £7 billion investment in a company called Lockheed Martin that makes $1 million bombs that you are throwing through the roofs of homes in Syria, causing the Lockheed Martin share price to go through the roof and making a really nice, tidy profit for your family? Because it seems to me like it's you that acts on vested interest. I don't have a vested interest. I have something else. It's called empathy. Yeah, I have something that's called a perfectly normal human sense of decency and fairness. And you know what? It would make a right change if just some of you in government would have the same thing for once.